Hello, everyone. Hello, hi. Trinity Wave here, and I'm very excited for today. Um, if you don't know me, I am a belly dance teacher, I am a divine healer and video producer, and today I want to share some about improving emotional awareness and flow and flowing through emotions. So, if you're joining me today, I invite us to take some breaths together. So, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through pursed lips. Let it all go. Doing that again. And one more time if you can. Great, thank you. So, today's talk is on some steps that have helped me to improve my emotional awareness and to understand and understand my feelings and emotions and be able to flow through those emotions with more ease and grace. And I now allow myself to feel emotions, but growing up, I didn't feel like I had a safe space to do that and to experience and feel my own emotions, if you can imagine that. And now that I understand more about emotional awareness and flow and the benefits of it, I am able to flow things much more easily than when I started. And so, just taking a nice deep inhale and exhale here. Breathing through this process is great for going through emotions, and I'm going to talk more about that in today's talk. Um, so, talking about human emotions, they are natural, and I'm not saying that negative emotions are easy to feel. I think most people understand that inherently, but it is much easier to meet them now for me to meet them and have a polite conversation with them rather than um, feeling tired and exhausted all day trying to create walls around them so that I don't feel them. So I'll give you an example here of this. So, say someone wanted to give me a message and they showed up at my front door with a letter, and instead of me just answering the front door and receiving the message, I instead decide to start creating a wall around my front door with bricks. So, this is just an example of how a human can be energetically um, treating negative emotions. And I did this kind of emotional wall building for a while, and I had built a great fortress. And over time, I realized that it wasn't serving me anymore. And again, I didn't feel that I had the tools back then and when I talk about back then, I mean like when I was young or when I was younger. Um, and this goes back to even like childhood and elementary school. Like we we weren't taught emotional awareness in public school. Like when I grew up in public school, emotional awareness and emotional expression were not taught. We weren't taught about emotions like we were taught about learning how to read or learning colors, you know. Um, it seemed like emotions didn't have a place in public school. It seemed like we were expected to be quiet and just listen to the teacher. And if the teacher got upset with us, that seemed to be acceptable within the public school system, but it didn't seem like we had a space to have our own emotions as children. And I remember that some children would get escorted out of the room if they were having big feelings. It kind of seemed like a hostage situation in that regard. So it just made it feel like a very unsafe situation to have feelings in, from my experience. And in today's talk, I have some steps that have helped me to connect to and flow through emotions. And this is just what I've gleaned so far. So I've learned from great teachers, and some have helped me create this. And so I'm grateful for that and for them. Um, but know that I am evolving and learning as I grow. And these are just some steps for emotional awareness that have worked for me that I'd like to share. And so if this works for you, great. And if not, feel free to tweak this or find what does work for you. So part of this talk is today is that and becoming more aware of those emotions and also flowing through those emotions. So I hope that this helps you or others in the world somehow. So are you ready to hear about these steps? If that was a yes, I'll continue. So the acronym for these steps in emotional awareness and flow is FOCAL or FOCAB. You can say FOCAB focal or just one or the other. And I'll spell it out here. So focal is FOCAL, focal. And FOCAB is similar. So FOCAB. And I'll go into why that is a little bit later. But focal is, I guess, more of an easier acronym to recognize because it's like having a focal point or a point to focus on. And this can be like a visual point of like, say someone has like, I'm gonna use an archery example because that's like the most used, but there could be a million others, so forgive me. But if there was like a bullseye on the wall, and that's like a focal point of where someone is looking to like where their aim is going. So I'm not saying that you have to focus on this. This could also be like a mental focus thing, but this is just this is just if you're interested in becoming more in emotional awareness and connection to that. So I'm going to take a drink here. So let's get into it. Um, the first part of this is the F, of course, of focal is the F, and this stands for feel. So feel what emotion is coming up. So an example of this, a positive example would be happiness, joy, and a negative emotion would be sadness or fear. And again, these are all just natural human emotions. Okay. They're all natural. And to some degree, the emotion and the body can be connected. So I'm going to give a few little examples here of this. So in my yoga teacher training, I learned about the chakra system, which came from ancient Indian philosophy. And you may have heard of this idea. It's more popular now these days. But these are energy centers. This is an idea that these are energy centers in the body, and they're within the body. And these can include the 7 main chakras, and the sometimes emotions are in this philosophy, there are certain emotions that are connected to these energy centers. So, for instance, the heart has some connections to emotions. And so each chakra has like a balance and imbalance kind of thing. And a positive emotion for the heart would be love. And a negative emotion could be sadness. And of course, I'm not saying that people have to have these feelings in these exact places. Um, I think that emotions don't have to be in specific places in the body. Um, I was just sharing this example because this is something that I learned with that, but I've also practiced getting in touch with my emotions, and I was guided to search what feelings and emotions were found in the body. And so this is kind of the idea that if something was off for me, that I could connect to my body and breathing into the body and listening what the body is telling me. And for this, for me, this can be both physical and so connecting to what is happening physically in the body and connecting intuitively. So to the inner and outer parts of the body. And this can be as simple as I feel some constriction or tightness in my upper belly. And sometimes this can be more descriptive and elaborate. For example, I feel like there's a tightrope around my diaphragm. And if I was seeing that visualization, for instance, maybe I could allow myself to visualize that rope kind of falling off and allowing myself to feel more free to breathe. So there are times when one is having a bodily sensation that may or may not be connected to an emotion. And for instance, if a person was working outside for a while and they were using their right hand, and they came in later and they were like, my right arm is sore, obviously that's like a bodily feeling. But sometimes bodily pain can affect the emotions. And if one is having really intense bodily sensations like pleasure or pain, um, there could be emotions that flow with that. And one can become emotional because there is a bodily sensation happening. It doesn't always have to, but sometimes, I mean, think about if you were a child, and you like fell and hurt yourself, sometimes you would cry. This is just an example. So, if this is the first time you're getting used to connecting to emotions and talking about emotions, it's nice to become familiar with emotional words and to practice these and getting used to the feeling within yourself and that emotional word or terminology to help identify these within the self. And it's also nice to find if you're doing starting out with this work, find out if there's certain emotions that continue showing up consistently for you. And I'm just going to give some emotional words here just to show examples of emotional words. Um, joy, love, peace. And I've also made an emotional chart, which I have in the link below in the description. If you're interested, you can download that chart and just have some starting point to study and to become more familiar with some of these. So moving on to the next step of focal is the O. So owning where it came from. O, owning where it came from. And this was important for me because as a person with in my past, I feel like I had a lot of trauma. And so this was nice for me to be able to kind of trace back um, to some of the original wounds that I had to help bring more awareness to my experience and some of my pain. And this would eventually lead me to the healing of that wound and owning where it came from. Has been helpful for me to kind of unpack and understand some of my triggers. And a trigger is just like, how do I explain this? It's like it can be a word, it can be a presence of something that makes you feel a certain way. Um, it could be like they say this a lot with like anger management because there can be people can have anger responses at times. I'm not saying that you have to have this, but I'm just okay. So, for instance, I don't like the sound of dogs barking. And I know I've had trauma around dogs, and my grandparents had dogs that bit people in my family. And when Standing Rock happened, there were dogs that attacked innocent people. And ever since then, I just really just don't prefer to be around dogs. And I understand why certain people have dogs to a certain degree. And I respect, you know, I respect a person's choice to live with their free will, but personally, I don't like to be around dogs or hear them bark. So I believe a person can own where their trigger came from and kind of the original wound from that experience. And I believe there's more opportunity to heal this trigger or this wound so that they can move past it. And sometimes this could take like personal healing work to understand that more deeply and kind of own more deeply where that came from. Um, and I have lots of healing modalities that I've done over the years, and there's lots of visualization and you know lots of things that can be done. So there's lots of options for healing. And if you're interested in some of that stuff, maybe I could make a video about it or, comment if you're interested in more healing modality ideas for that kind of stuff. So moving on now to the next letter of focal, and this is C. So compassion for self and or others. Compassion for self and or others. And this one is probably a little bit easier to understand. Um, Compassion, just in a nutshell, just being unconditional love and understanding, heartfelt connection. And I really enjoyed this part a lot because this part has helped me to transmute some of the negative emotions that I had. And I mean it still works. um, I can sometimes just affirm that I am compassionate with myself and I am compassionate with myself and others. And so feel free to say this if you'd like to. So I am compassionate with myself. I am compassionate with others. And thank you. So if I notice that I'm having thoughts that might be less compassionate to others, I like to return to compassion for myself and then extend that to compassion to others. And this has helped me to let go some of the negative thoughts um, and return to a state of love and compassion. And I have noticed that when I am more compassionate for others, it also allows me to be more compassionate with myself. Funny how that works. And so when I open my mind to think positively about others, I feel more positive and I feel more easy on myself. So if I notice myself having negative emotions or thoughts about myself or others, it can be helpful to bring compassion to myself to help transmute those negative energies and allow them to return to love and light. So people are human and sometimes people make mistakes. So if someone made a mistake, an affirmation could be, I am compassionate with others. I am compassionate with myself, or I am compassionate with myself and I am compassionate with others. And in this way, just returning to love and forgiveness to allow things to move on. So, what's helped me in moving through some past trauma, sometimes it's nice to like bring a hand to the heart and kind of energetically connecting to the heart space to affirm, I am compassionate with myself. I am compassionate with others. I am worthy of feeling love for myself and giving compassion to others. So I'll say it again, and you're welcome to repeat if you haven't already. I am worthy of feeling unconditional love for myself and giving compassion to others. So feel that and breathe. Thank you for doing that if you did. And so moving on here to the next letter of vocab or focal is acceptance. Sorry, the next letter is A. A stands for acceptance. Moved a little too quickly there. A, acceptance. They say that time heals all wounds, but I don't feel like it has to. I don't think that we need to just wait it out to like heal ourselves. I think that this idea is like if a person was carrying an emotional baggage that they haven't accepted and released, and this idea is just that like over time it would just get so heavy that they would just have to let it go rather than carrying it another step further. And I feel like it doesn't have to get to that point. I think that what could help the process if there was more acceptance, if acceptance was a conscious part of this, is what I'm trying to say. I think that it would help if acceptance was a conscious part of this. So I'm going to give you a silly kind of example here. So this is like the basic idea of acceptance, but so when I was growing up in high school, I was excited to go to college and, I wrote out all these letters to colleges, applying to go to college. And when I received letters back, some of them didn't accept me, some of them accepted me. And so I had to choose out of those that accepted me, you know, which college I would accept. And so there was one college that was really beautiful that I had been to before, and um, they had an environmental studies program, which I was really excited about. So I decided to accept that letter from their acceptance. And so, but this can also go with accepting feelings, accepting emotions. Um, and there's no like, I believe that I'm going to go back to the mistake example here. So I think that it's a lot easier for a person to move on if they made a mistake, for example. So if I made a mistake, it's probably a lot easier for me to move on if I accept that I made that mistake. Another example could be that if a waiter made a mistake, it's probably a lot easier for me to accept that situation and have some compassion for that person, and whatever they're going through. Um, and I may not know them personally, but they may have things that are going on in their home or at work. So trying to be compassionate with that. And I think that acceptance is a lot easier to happen in this process if the person has done the previous steps, like identifying what feeling they're feeling, um, and having compassion for themselves. I think acceptance comes a lot easier after those things happen. And I can even remember in my past when I was a waitress, over 10 years ago, and I had been really emotionally blocked, like I was mentioning before. And one day in my past, I was waitressing at this restaurant and I was bussing a large table of dishes and glasses on a large tray. And I remember heavily bringing all these dishes on this tray, to the dishwasher. And maybe I slipped on something or the door was weird, but soon after I came through the door to set it down for the dishwasher, all of it just kind of crashed on the floor. And when I look back now at that situation, it's almost like a metaphor for all the emotions that I have been carrying around that were getting so heavy because I had spent so much energy trying not to feel them, trying to build those walls. And similarly, that tremendous crash was like my fear of what I thought would happen if I began to feel my emotions. So I had this fear that it would all just come crashing out like glassware on the floor. And of course, that's not what happened. Over time, I just gradually learned more about emotions, and I found I was able to express my emotions in a variety of ways. And sometimes it was scary, but it was also tremendously healing for me. And so, if you've been holding on to an emotion or a situation, um, I encourage you to just take a moment and just say out loud, I accept, and insert that feeling or emotional word. I'll give you an example here. I accept that I'm sad. So now you can think about what emotion you've been flowing through recently or situation. I accept blank. I accept this situation. And especially for situations, sometimes it's nice to see a situation both objectively and through your own, feeling lens. So thank you for doing that. So that was acceptance. So moving on to the last part here for us, this is the difference between vocab and focal. So that last little part is the B in breathe and the L in let it go. So these are the same thing. So, step 5 is breathe and let it go. So, I invite you here to take an inhale again through the nose and exhale through pursed lips. And you're welcome to do this a few times if you need to. So just taking that negative feeling in and just let it go on the exhale. Just let it all flow out. And of course, it's helpful to be breathing throughout this whole process through the feeling of the emotion and, having compassion for oneself, owning where it came from, accepting. And this breathing, what this is doing, especially at the end, is just allowing all that old energy to go out and allowing the next breath to allow that new energy in, allowing more space into the body, into the energetic field. And so I invite us to do another inhale and exhale here. So inhaling through the nose and exhale, let it go. Whew. Thank you. And so I have another little option here. Bonus, bonus after the vocab vocal. So if you've gone through the steps, if you've gone through your own process and you're feeling like something is still lingering or, you still have some agitation or something, a suggestion here is to do an affirmation to reset and realign. And just a little reminder here, an affirmation is a positive statement. So I'm going to give you an example here. So recently, I felt sad. I had a recent conversation about with one of my family members, and so for me to balance out that sad feeling, I wanted to bring some love to myself, and so some affirmations that I chose to say was, "I am love. I am lovable, and of course, I love myself," which I do. So if it's a triggering situation, maybe you felt, and I'm gonna give you another example here. So if you had a triggering sensation and um, you know, or if I had a triggering sensation and if it made me feel like unsafe or insecure, maybe I could remind myself, I am safe, I am protected, and I do believe in um, I believe that divine is connected to us at all moments, and we all have the ability to connect to healing and divine light and love. And I think that we're provided and guided in some way. So, you know, so if you want more affirmations, if you feel like you want to create your own affirmations and learn more about these to help yourself, I do have an affirmation workshop on my YouTube channel. So if you're familiar with affirmations, maybe you can create one for yourself. And I just want to say, I'm getting to the end of this discussion here, but I want to say thank you for listening. And I hope you found this helpful in whatever way that you have. And I also just want to share an offering with you here. So I do have an Embody Your Goddess course, and there's still spaces on my next course coming up. And There's also a weekly online goddess circle within this course, and this is a space where women talk about emotions and what's going on. And if you're interested in that 12-week online course for women, I hope you'll fill out an application. And this was also created for women who are especially looking for to reduce belly size and to grow spiritually or develop spiritually. So, and reduce weight if you're interested in that. So, if you're interested in this 12-week online course, please head over to my website, trinitywavedesigns.com. And I'm taking applications now for the next round scheduled to start in mid-March. So, would love to have your application and get to know you more. So, I'm sending you so much love and so much light. And please add in the comments or the chat what you thought about this talk today. I'd love to hear about that. And I hope you have a beautiful day. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Have a great day.